Welcome to the Subway Conversation Chat. My name is Jamie Malloy, and I'm here to discuss some New York baseball with you all and my co-host, Joe Dallio. So without any further hesitation, here's Joe. Hey, Joe, how's it going?
It is going very well. How you doing tonight?
I'm good. As we mentioned backstage, I woke up this morning, and now all of a sudden, it's almost 8 o'clock. We're ready to do our show, and the Yankees have the best record in the MLB.
That is very impressive. And again, you told me that stage, and I did not realize that. I mean, obviously, I knew, one of the better teams in the league, but it makes sense. Again, the Phillies were the top team for a long time. They've been sputtering a little bit. The Dodgers have been just kind of rolling along. But the Yankees, minus a little rough patch there, seems like they've gotten things back together. And congratulations, right now, 2/3 of the way through the season, top team in baseball. That's very impressive.
Thank you. And your Mets are still holding on at 59 and 54, which is good. So
they're in a good spot. If you would have told me in April that this was going to be the situation, again, almost 2/3 of the way through the season, I would have certainly taken this at this point.
Yep. So anyway, Joe, speaking of those Metropolitans, would you like to get us kicked off with some Mets news in Mets land?
Yes, I'll start us off tonight. Now, last week we were dealing with the trade deadline, and we had so much to talk about, the both of us. Not so much here. The Mets have made some moves, but again, with the trade deadline going on and a whole flurry of activity, we don't have that here. But a few things to talk about as far as I'll start with player movement and transactions and things like that. Now, one of the guys that they got in the trade, in a trade, Tyler Zuber, I believe he came from the Rays, if I'm not mistaken. But he was sent down to Syracuse, so he'll get some seasoning there. Now, also, as far as Syracuse here, Tyler McGill, who is one of the core starters in the beginning, actually was hurt in the beginning of the season, but once he was ready to go, he pitched for the Mets for a little while, and they sent him down because he was struggling a little bit. And then recently they brought him up. He had maybe a good start or two, but lately been struggling again. So Tyler McGill sent back down to AAA Syracuse as well. A few guys went bye-bye. I mentioned Adrian Hauser and Jake Diekman last week that they had been designated for assignment. Well, both of them got their walking papers as Hauser was released, as was Jake Diekman, both of them struggling most of the year. And so, again, with the nice depth that the Mets have, in that bullpen at this point, they were able to afford to let Doogie and Jake, Adrian Hauser. Yes, I said that on purpose. But hopefully the Dr. Hauser could figure things out and end up somewhere else. Same with Jake Diekman. Let's see. Other news here. Reed Garrett has been slowly getting back into rehab mode. A little concerning, though, because last week, I think it was Friday, had a rehab outing with Binghamton, which is the AA team, and it didn't go so hot. He pitched a third of an inning and gave up 3 runs and 4 hits. So I don't know. I didn't see it. Don't know what what the situation was there. He did pitch yesterday at AAA Syracuse, and things went a little better there. Pitched an inning, gave up a hit and a walk, but did have 3 strikeouts. So I think it'll be sooner than later anyway, that we see Reed Garrett back with the Mets. He was doing quite well when he was with the Mets, and again, just adding to that depth. A few injury updates here that we'll go over. Now, Christian Scott, been talking about him, a nice bright spot in that starting rotation, but had the UCL strain or whatever, or I don't know is specifically UCL strain, but again, the alarm bell's going off for potential Tommy John. But that he's been cleared to start a throwing program in the next few days. So that'll be significant. If he can get through that pain-free and without issue, he might get himself back in the lineup in a month, maybe for the stretch run there. Another name, this is an interesting one. If you know the name, or any Met fans know the name Ronnie Mauricio, he was at the top of the Mets prospect list for the last couple of years, and was on target to make the team this year, but he was playing winter ball and tore his ACL. And they thought maybe he'd be able to rehab in enough time to get some playing time at the end of this year. But he had to go through a clean out procedure. And so he's officially done for the rest of this season. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Again, last couple of years, he was on the top Mets prospect list and, one of the top MLB prospects as well. So hopefully he can get himself in shape and get back to the team by next season. So
I did hear about Ronnie Mauricio. That's who they got last year in the trade deadline when they were selling for prospects, and I think he hit a couple home runs in his debut or something.
You may be thinking. I think they had him before. You may be thinking of Acuna, Ronald Acuna's brother.
Mm-hmm.
He's been. I don't know. I thought they got him in one of the trades, like for Scherzer last year, and Luis Angel Acuna, I believe, is his first name there. But they got him in one of those trades, and they thought maybe he'd make the team at some point, but he's still been playing for Syracuse in AAA. So we'll see, if he ends up back here. But you probably, if you follow the prospects around Major League Baseball, Mauricio was often on that list. So it was a shame of what happened in winter ball. But, again, hopefully, he can live up to his potential and, make an impact eventually. So that's it as far as, moves that the Mets have made, at least, one's worth discussing. And also Starling Marte, no real update on him. So I don't know what's going on there. I was thinking they would have him back at this point, but no news as far as he's concerned. So we'll see what goes on there. But anything happening in Yankees land that's interesting, Jamie?
Well, yes, Joe. Thank you for that info on the Mets news and everything. And as far as the Yankees concerned, is the injury report, we got to talk about Clark, John, Jacob, Jingleheimer, Schmidt. Yes, Schmidt threw 20 pitches to his teammate Jose Trevino, Anthony Rizzo, and John Birdie in his first live batting practice. Schmidt was very pleased with the command he had, and we quote, "It was really sharp. Stuff was good. Good feedback from the hitters. I'm really happy with it," Schmidt said. "Physically, I felt great today."
Good.
Saturday, Schmidt will take another live throwing session and stated that he could have a rehab assignment shortly after. "Whatever is needed to get my pitch count up quicker," ending quote, "we will probably go in that direction," Schmidt said. Schmidt hopes to be back pitching sometime in August. When he was hurt, he was one of the Yankees' best pitchers, going 5-3 with a 2.52 ERA and 67 strikeouts in 60 2/3 innings. And whenever he comes back, or whenever they go out, the Yankees fans will shout, "It's Clark, John, Jacob, Jingleheimer, Schmidt." Da, 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 da. Anyway, number 2, we're going to talk about Ian, not Alexander Hamilton, but a pitcher named Ian Hamilton. Hamilton is scheduled to throw a high-intensity bullpen session, which will show another step to his recovery. Then he will face batting practice with live hitters. After that, he will move on to pitch in the minor leagues. Now let's turn it back to you, Joe, for some more Mets news. Joe?
Yeah, all right, you're going to get me singing here. Now, my daughters love the musical Hamilton, and so, we're going to have to start singing those songs now. But anyway, you don't want to hear me sing, but let's move on to some things happening with the Mets. Now, we were talking about this interesting road trip here and, how the Mets were going to react to it. The bad news is they're traveling to 4 cities in like 10 days here. They did the first series already against the Angels. In fact, the good news with this is, for most of it anyway, is they're playing, subpar competition. Now, the Angels would be considered subpar competition, based on the record. But the Mets did lose 2 out of 3 of those games. They got off to a good start, won the first game of the series, but lost the last 2 there. Now, then from there, they had to fly all the way to St. Louis from LA, and for a makeup game. This was a game that was rained out earlier in the season against the Cardinals. And now the Cardinals, I wouldn't call inferior competition. They're right there in the mix with the Mets as far as the wild card. But the Mets, you would think that the score was 6-0. The Mets won that game. You would think they would have been the team just to not show up and lose 6-0. But it was interesting that it was the other way around, traveling halfway across the country, and with no rest. The Mets just showed up and took care of business there. So that was a big win. Now, 3 games, they have to go back to Denver. And again, subpar competition there, although the Mets did lose the first game of that series. So hopefully they could take the next 2. They got one tonight in about 20 minutes, and then an afternoon game tomorrow. Now, after that, then they got to fly back to the West Coast, to the Pacific Northwest, to Seattle. Certainly wouldn't consider the Mariners to be inferior competition. That's a tough series there. And that ends, the road trip. So a 10-game road trip there. Now, I was saying, if the Mets could go 6-4, that would be golden. But even 5-5, I think, would be acceptable. So they're 2-3 so far. They lost again 2 out of 3 to the Angels, and they won that makeup game against the Cardinals, and then losing the first game to the Rockies. Now, they outscored their opponents 20-15. So that averages out to like 4-3. So, that's not, that's not horrible there. But that includes the 6-0 shutout to the Cardinals. Now let's go over some stats here, and then we'll kind of talk about what's coming next here. So nothing too impressive. They had 3 home runs this week. Pete Alonso had 1. He had a couple RBIs, 867 OPS. So he's continuing to rebound from his slump and kind of play a lot more Pete Alonso-like. Now, JD Martinez, again, interesting. He's done this for a few weeks now, where his batting average is very low, but he's been productive. He had a home run and 5 RBIs this week, although he hit 167 and struck out 6 times. So interesting mix. It's like, all right, which JD Martinez is the real one here? But again, when he is hitting, he's being very productive. Jeff McNeil, talking about rebounding from bad starts here. He had a home run and RBI this week. He batted 400, 1,300 OPS. So he continues to hit. Francisco Alvarez has been kind of quiet, but he had an RBI, hit 357 this week. He's not getting extra base hits, but he is hitting. On Harrison Bader, 4 RBIs. He hit 357 this week with an 875 OPS. So he's been consistent all year. Jose Iglesias, he didn't have a home run or RBIs, but it batted over 300. OPS close to 700. Nimmo, same thing. He's been quiet a little bit, but he did have an RBI, batted 300, 764 OPS. Can't complain about that. And Tyrone Taylor, 3 RBIs as well. Now, some guys that have been playing well had some off weeks here. Lindor, Vientos, and Winker. Now, Winker was one of the guys that the Mets brought over in the trade deadline. He's only hitting 111 since joining the Mets. Now, he was supposed to be an upgrade over guys like DJ Stewart, Tyrod Taylor. I'm going to keep calling him Tyrod. I know it's Tyrone, but, Tyrod Taylor, the quarterback that played here in Buffalo, now in New York. I can't resist. Sorry, I got to put it there. But Tyrone Taylor is hitting like Tyrone Taylor, not Tyrod. So hopefully Jesse Winker can get it going here, because, again, he was supposed to be an upgrade compared to some of the guys that they had. Let's talk some pitching a little bit. Now, Sean Manaea is on a roll. This is the second game in a row where he went 7 innings. The game that he pitched here, this was against the Cardinals the other day. He gave up 6 hits, but no runs, And the second game in a row now that he had double-digit strikeouts. He had 11 the previous start, and he had 10 Monday's game against the Cardinals there. So trade deadline acquisition here, Paul Blackburn. It was going to be interesting to see how he did because, again, he had only pitched 9 games this year with the A's. He had hurt himself, so he was out for a couple of months and just getting started. But he pitched that game against the Angels that the Mets won. In fact, he got the win in that game. He pitched 6 innings, 6 hits, only gave up a run. He had 6 strikeouts there as well. So if he's going to pitch like that, and again, he's probably going to be fresh because he missed those 2 months. And do you think maybe his mental state is pretty good? He's healthy again. And you're going from a team like the A's, who are in, baseball limbo there, and going nowhere, basically. Well, going to Sacramento, actually, but going nowhere in the standings. And now you go to a team that's competing for a wild card spot here and fully in contention. So I think, Paul Blackburn's got to be feeling pretty good about that. And I think he's got some incentive. Again, he's fresh. So it'll be interesting to see. He's pitching tonight, I believe, as well. So, again, pitching in Colorado is always an adventure, but hopefully he can have the same type of game he had against the Angels. David Peterson, again, interesting story. It seems like every start is a battle for him, but he gets through them and he does decent. And again, 6 innings. We talk about quality starts. 5 hits in those 6 innings. Only gave up 2 earned runs. He got a no decision in that game against the Angels that the Mets lost. But again, good start by Peterson, as most of his have been. Jose Quintana had an okay start. He pitched 5, gave up 3 runs, 3 hits. So, okay. The Mets might have a little bit of an issue now with Luis Severino. He's been pitching solid all year, but he's struggled a little bit in his last few. His last start, he did make it 5 innings, but he gave up 8 hits and 4 earned runs. So he hasn't pitched a lot in the last few years, and it's almost mid-August now. So you got to wonder, is the wear and tear? He's pitched a lot of innings, compared to the last few years here. So we were talking about that a little bit and wondering about that. Or some of these pitchers these kind of older guys, Quintana, another one, although he's hanging in there and doing well. You got to wonder if Severino's getting a little tired and kind of worn down a little bit. So again, having somebody like Kodai Senga, or Christian Scott or guys like that would certainly help. To add to the depth and maybe give those guys some more time between starts. But it'll be interesting to see, how Severino goes the rest of the way. You kind of wonder if he's starting to wear out a little bit after not pitching a lot the last few years. As far as the relief pitching, nothing to brag about, but really nothing to complain about. They were pretty solid, and the only 2 relievers that gave up runs, this entire week in the 5 games, it was Alex Young, who only gave up a run, and a new guy they picked up. How's this? Hopefully I'm getting the pronunciation right. I get to practice my Spanish. I'm a Spanish teacher here a little bit. But Huáscar Brazoban, or he's got the accent on it, so Brazoban, a new addition to the Mets, and he struggled this week. He gave up 3 runs in 2 2/3 innings. So hopefully he can get it together there. And again, him and Alex Young were the only ones that gave up any runs in the bullpen all week. So, all right. So where are the Mets right now? So 59 and 54, as you mentioned in the beginning of the show. When we talked last week, they were the last team in by a game or so in the wild card hunt. Now, as we speak, based on the earlier results, again, the Mets play, in about 20 minutes or so. They are a game and a half out of the final wild card. The Padres and the Diamondbacks just keep winning. And the Diamondbacks are surprising. Not so much the Padres. I figured they'd be doing this. But again, I said the Diamondbacks were frauds and they wouldn't be close. And again, some of my predictions go well. And if you watch this show and the football show, you'll see a lot of my predictions don't exactly go true. So the Diamondbacks are proving me wrong here. And again, they're just getting hot at the right time like they did last year. And making a big playoff push. But certainly, again, there's 59 to 54, so that's 113 games. So they have 49 games left. So still a lot of baseball to be played here. Interesting thing here now is I didn't realize, I was listening to MLB radio before. The Braves are the last team in. They're the third wild card. Padres and Diamondbacks are ahead of them. So the Braves are this is a team that people were expecting to, compete for the World Series this year. And again, they've had injuries and they've had a bunch of issues, a lot of things they can't control. But they're a game and a half from being out of the playoff picture completely. If the Mets were to catch that third spot, they would catch the Braves at this point. So very interesting to see. I mean, again, Padres, Diamondbacks could go into a slump and fall out of it. I said this last week. I mean, with the Mets, they're 1 5-game winning streak from being like the top wild card. And they're a 5-game losing streak, or even they went 2-3 this week. And they went from being the third team in to, being out of it. So much could happen, with 49 or so games to go. And any one of these teams, Cardinals, Pirates too, they're on the outside looking in, but they're very close and they can go on a hot streak and take off and end up in this wild card as well. So the National League wild card picture is very exciting. And again, if you would have told me when we first started doing the show in March or April that the Mets would be right in the thick of it here, going into the second week of August, I don't think I could have asked for more. Yes, of course, I could have asked for a fight for the division and a great team, but that's not what was expected of the Mets. And I said then that if they're in the wild card hunt late in the season, I'd be happy. And of course, if they can get in there, that would even be better. So, like I said, Rockies tonight and tomorrow afternoon, Seattle on the weekend. Now things get interesting after the road trip. All right, again, it's a tough road trip. They're going to be, tired. They have a 9-game homestand. And the first 2 teams that come to town are the A's and the Marlins. Each of those is a 3-game series. So there's no reason that the Mets can't, win 5 out of those 6. The Orioles come in after, so it's a 9-game homestand. And the Orioles, of course, that's going to be a little tougher. But if they could take 2 out of 3 in that one, again, we'll be talking about this next week. But so A's, Marlins, if you want to be serious in this wild card race, I'm thinking, again, the Marlins and A's both got rid of some quality players at the trade deadline. Yes, they got some prospects and stuff, but I think they're in, August dog days mode. Let's get this season finished mode. And, for a team like the Mets that's still in the thick of this, there's no reason they can't win 5 out of 6 of those games. So, yeah, and again, if they could take 2 out of 3 from the Orioles at Citi Field, that would be amazing too. So I think I got everything that I could here without taking up too much time. Again, Mets are in good position. Hopefully they can stay that way and win some of these games against the easier competition here. So let's talk about the best team in Major League Baseball right now, or at least the team with the best record. And Jamie, what's going on there?
It actually has to do with a kind of an obscure turned back into relevant prospect, Oswald Peraza, who we would say is back in the New York groove. Anyway, it seemed way back in June that Yankees prospect Oswald Peraza went into obscurity. The Scranton Wilkes-Barre rail rider was batting an abysmal 167 and was even called up to the Yankees for some reason. And he ended up not even playing in the game when he got called up. And then the talented prospect went back down to AAA and recently has climbed out of obscurity and back into the mainstream. Peraza was 2 of 4 with 2 home runs and 2 RBIs in the Rail Riders 5-2 win versus the Louisville Bats. And he had three homers in his last 2 games. The news is great, but how do the Yankees go about dealing with Peraza when right now their top priority is getting Jason Dominguez up to the Bombers? And then the reality is Dominguez is still a better prospect than Peraza, even though Peraza's played more MLB games than Dominguez. And also, as you saw in the deadline, the Yankees were in buyer's mode and want to win the World Series this year. And then they additionally need to find a way to sign Juan Soto long-term while keeping Dominguez. So, Joe, what do you think about Oswald Peraza making things more complicated now with his improvement, his play lately? Because it should be about Dominguez and Soto, but go ahead.
That's not a bad problem to have. Now, what position is Peraza again? Is he an outfielder?
I think he's a first baseman or second baseman. Let me take a look so we get this right. Oswald. Okay. Let me see. Let's see. He's a third baseman and shortstop.
Third and short. Okay. So, they could use some help there. Third base, somebody to spell LeMahieu a little bit, and you don't know if LeMahieu is going to be there next year, right? So it's a good problem to have. Again, you're trying to focus, of course, on Soto, of course, on Dominguez, who's like the big name, prospect here. But hey, if this guy's going to get hot, especially now, that's certainly not a bad thing. It's not a bad problem to have, to try to make decisions on, where to put a bunch of excellent players. If they all were hitting 198, then that's a bad problem because, oh my goodness, what are we supposed to do with this? What are we supposed to do with that? But when they're producing, that's a good problem to have. And I'm sure the Yankees will be able to figure it out. And, things will probably work themselves out, that if they continue to do that, and if they're able to sign Soto, they'll certainly be able to work it out and get these guys in the lineup on a regular basis.
Right, but then right now you got Jazz Chisholm Jr. playing third base, but I'm sure they want to keep him beyond this year too, and not just have him for this year.
Yeah, Jazz could play the outfield too, though, right?
Right, yeah.
Because he was playing center field, I think, with the Marlins. So I think his regular position, his original position was second base with the Marlins, but he ended up, playing center field for them. So he's pretty flexible. So if you do end up keeping him, then again, he can move around. He could play, a bunch of different positions. So again, you can, and even on a daily basis, sometimes you might have to do that. Like the Mets do that with Jeff McNeil. He could play second, he could play third, he could play left field. So, and some nights he'll play, some weeks he'll play one game at second, he'll play in left, so that's something that, with Chisholm, if they, still have him next year, that they could figure out with him. But again, like I said, good problem to have. It's, trying to fit these guys in and it's just a matter of having to, try to find a way to make it work.
It is a good problem to have, but like I said, say they pay Soto the $500 million he wants. Obviously they're going to keep Dominguez and everything, but how would they find a way to keep Peraza and Chisholm and everything if you pay Soto that $500 million?
Yeah, well, then I don't see Chisholm staying if that's the case. It might be a case where if they sign Soto, you're not going to be able to keep, Jazz in New York. Now, Peraza, he's a younger player, just like Dominguez. I mean, I'm sure their salaries are manageable at this point.
Right, they are.
So, that's something you'd have to work out later. But in the near future, I don't think that would be an issue. Jazz would, obviously, because he got a much bigger salary there. And again, if you're a Yankees fan, you want to have both. But I think if you could only have one of them, which one would you rather have?
Soto, obviously.
Yeah. So, as
Even
much
though
as
Jazz is good, though, Jazz could be an all-star with the Yankees, though, too.
certainly, and again, if you could have both, that would be amazing. I do think, though, salary-wise, if they do sign Soto, you're probably not going to be able to keep somebody like Jazz Chisholm.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, how do you replace that production then? I mean, Peraza is obviously decent, but he's not Jazz, though. That's the thing.
It's true, but maybe he could develop into that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you got to hope for. There's no guarantees. Obviously, you know what you got in Jazz Chisholm, but you hope that you can develop guys again like Dominguez and some of the other younger guys too, and maybe you get somebody that surprises and kind of steps into that role, and turns out to be the same type of player eventually.
Right, because I'm not really worried. Dominguez is basically, I think, could be a clone of Juan Soto. It's Peraza's been here for a while now. That's the thing, and he hasn't really. I mean, he's still got plenty of time to develop, but he still needs to show more if he wants to be on the Yankees full time. Because he would have made the Yankees starting lineup this year, but he got hurt.
Okay, how long has he been with it? How long has he been with them?
They signed him as an international free agent in 2016, but he made his debut in 2022.
In 22, okay.
So he's still got time, obviously.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, let's move on to another young Yankees guy who you really can't call a prospect anymore because he was a rookie prospect last year, but now he's developing into an older grown man and possibly the Yankees' next best catcher, not David Wells, but Austin Wells. The Yankees have a tradition of excellence with catchers. First came Bill Dickey, no relation to the rapper Little Dicky, who was an 11-time All-Star and a 7-time World Series winner. Then came Yogi Berra, and he was also a winner. Berra was an 18th-time All-Star, 3-time AL MVP, and won 10 championships. After Berra, more Hall of Famers swirled through the Yankees catching program. Elston Howard, Thurman Munson, RIP to this day, buddy, and Jorge Posada were all-stars. Howard and Munson won Gold Glove Awards. Now it may be Austin Wells' turn. Wells may only be batting. We're going to change this. It's actually 250 now. 250 in 244 plate appearances, but he's also an excellent defender. Wells is establishing a reputation as being one of the best young defensive catchers in the league, but his hitting has improved tremendously. Since June 1st, he's batting 262 in 131 at-bats with 7 home runs and 3 doubles. Could Wells be the next great one behind the plate for the Bombers? Joe, what do you think of Austin Wells' sudden rise as an MLB catcher? And this is the fact that you still have Jose Trevino out, and Wells has earned more playing time over Trevino, but Trevino said he could be coming back pretty soon.
Yeah, Wells has definitely taken excellent advantage of this opportunity. You said he's hitting about 250. I thought he was much closer to 200 not too long ago, wasn't he?
Yeah.
His average was low, and then I saw him, a couple of nationally televised games. He hit a home run against the Dodgers, I think, or one of those nationally televised games there. And he's just steadily improved. And again, I could swear he was down close to 200. Now you're telling me he's up to like 250. And so it's nice to see the hitting improve, but it just seems the maturity, the confidence, again, he's pretty steady behind the plate as well. So he's definitely improving quickly. And again, that's a excellent, amazing list that you mentioned there. In fact, I just was reading, I think Thurman Munson's anniversary of his death was like August 2nd, I think. And that was like 45 years ago. Hard to believe. I remember the day it happened. I was playing Little League baseball and we got the news during our game and stuff. So pretty crazy. But yeah, that list of catchers you mentioned, is amazing. And I mean, Wells hasn't put himself, in that category yet, but it's nice to see him steadily improve and to see the confidence grow. Again, he's handling these pitchers well. He's gotten the batting average way up and he's hitting for power as well. So very good to see. And hopefully he can continue that. Now, again, there's a chance his playing time decreases a little bit once Trevino gets back, but he could still, I'm sure he's still going to get plenty of time and plenty of opportunities to contribute and to continue to grow.
Right, and think about it. He's batting .250 as a second-year catcher in the minor league day where the league average is only like .230 or .240, the league batting average.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, that's a big leap from where he was. He was below that, not too long ago, a month and a half ago.
Mm-hmm. All right, now we're going to move on to DJ LeMahieu. Because, baby, tonight, the DJ got us falling in love again. Despite having the most horrendous year any star player on a big payday could ever have, DJ LeMahieu still has his clutch genes for now. For 2 times in 1 week, LeMahieu came in clutch with a walk-off single in a 4-3 win over the Toronto Blue Jays in the bottom of the 10th inning. The game was in an hour and 49-minute rain delay before the bottom of the 8th. This came on the heels of a career-high 6 RBIs for LeMahieu against the Philadelphia Phillies 4 days ago. DJ walked it off with the Blue Jays trying to defend it with a 5-man infield. Now, Joe, why is it that the Blue Jays can stack 5 in the infield to defend a hit like that, but they can't shift, and the shift is banned from the MLB? Is that the same thing? Explain it to us a little bit. It's kind of for baseball fans who don't know that the shift is banned.
Yeah, I don't know the exact rule. Now, I didn't see that. I wasn't aware of it. I guess maybe you're allowed to bring in like an outfielder in that spot. Is that what they did?
Yeah, they've actually been doing it all year, and it was just noticed on the Yankee game because I haven't watched Toronto play other than when they played the Yankees. But Michael Kay said they've been doing that all year long to try to defend.
Yeah, all right. I mean, first of all, who would want to watch Toronto play this year? But second of all, maybe there's a rule in there where you can bring an outfielder in like that. I mean, of course, you're taking chances because, you're leaving obviously a lot of space, open space in the outfield. But perhaps, again, I apologize, I'm not 100% familiar with it. I think the infielders are required to play within a certain, area, but perhaps, the outfielders can come in and play there. But again, you're doing so at a risk. And again, like I said, when the shift was not outlawed, these are major league hitters. So if you don't like the fact that somebody is clogging up the middle, you have a lot of empty space in the outfield. You're a major league hitter. Hit it where they ain't, and you got yourself a double or a triple. And at this level, you should be able to do that. So again, I hope nobody's complaining about that because, again, major league hitters should be able to hit around that. And the second that players do, I'm sure the Blue Jays and other teams that do that would stop doing it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And LeMahieu just hit it right up to the empty space up the middle, and that's how he was able to beat him there, walk it off. So, yep. But anyway, Joe, the Blue Jays did help the Yankees, though they beat the Orioles last night like 5-1. So
yes,
in Toronto. But the one thing about Toronto now is they're a team where they haven't played well all year, but they could make maybe show what they've got, make something out of their season with all these young prospects they got now. And now they got Ernie Clement leading off now, which is cool to see. And
Right. I
he's
never heard
developed
of
into
him.
a promising young player, Ernie Clement has.
I never heard of him until I play, daily fantasy baseball, and I hadn't played in a while, and I started again recently, and he's producing, and his salary, the way DraftKings works, his salary is very low still. So he's a valuable guy to get. I've played him a few times because, again, he's producing and his salary hasn't gone up yet.
He's
So
still a young kid. I think he's only in his second or third year of the MLB because I think he was a rookie last year. He spent half the year in the Bisons and then he got called up to the Blue Jays. And this year he made the Blue Jays right out of training camp and has played since.
yeah, and he's doing pretty well. But yeah, I mean, that's what the Blue Jays have to play for at this point. I don't think they're going, they're not going to hit a streak where they get in the wild card hunt. If they were in the National League, then maybe, but there's just too many, very good teams ahead of them in the American League that I don't think they're going to make a run. But, they've been lifeless for 2/3 of the season. And, minus a guy named Guerrero, who all of a sudden is playing at an MVP level again. He's been unstoppable. He's on a double-digit hitting streak now. And again, he's hitting for power and stuff. Again, he's playing like the potential MVP, Vlad Guerrero. So, again, if he could continue hot, if maybe some of these other guys that haven't produced, I know they traded away a couple of guys, but, and they've had some injuries. But, yeah, and the manager, I think, is done after this year. But at least go out, play spoiler, especially if you're going to be playing games against the Yankees or the Orioles like this, play spoiler. I mean, here's some teams that are fighting for a division or to get in the playoffs, the Red Sox, maybe the Rays in that division as well. So, win some games that you're not supposed to win, beat some teams that, maybe again are fighting for a spot and, think, well, we got the Blue Jays here. We can get this. And then the Blue Jays surprise them. So that's what I think they have to play for. And if they can, make some of those upsets and play inspired baseball this last third, then maybe the entire season is not a waste. And you can prepare, like you said, get some of these young guys going for next year, get a new manager in there, and perhaps things are, will be a little more up to potential, next season for them.
Because I think they could be starting out with a nice young team next year. They could too, which is good.
Right. With some excellent.
Their prospects wasn't the problem. It was they've got good young prospects. It was the veteran guys that were there during the first part of their success that weren't doing anything. Their prospects are good. Toronto's.
Yeah. And now, like I said, Guerrero is playing like he's supposed to. And I'm not sure about the other guys, but if again, let's look forward to next year for the Blue Jays. And if they can end on a high note here, then I think they can set themselves up well, and again, nobody will be talking about them. So, a lot of people were saying, hey, look out for the Blue Jays, look out for the Blue Jays. And of course they didn't do anything. Nobody's going to be saying that next year. And so they might be able to sneak up on people and surprise and maybe get to the level again that we thought they were supposed to.
They could be like this year's Yankees were after 2023, where remember they had a down year, but they were playing with a bunch of young kids at the end, and the Yankees were playing spoiler, and they did to Houston. They swept them 4 games in Houston, and then the Yankees took off this year. Toronto could be that team next year. Who knows? They're kind of doing what the Yankees and the Mets did last year, develop with prospects, and then maybe they take off next year like the Yankees did this year.
I agree. I think you're right about that.
If everything goes right, but that's what they could be.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, they put the Rogers Center actually looks like a regular ballpark now, ever since they put all those renovations into it.
You know what? Last night, I watched a few innings of that game, and that's the first. I haven't watched many Blue Jay games this year, but yeah, I saw that, and it looks amazing. The fans they were showing, some of the fans are right above the opposing bullpen, And I say that's kind of like a little cultural thing there. Now there's a lot of friendly banter between the fans and, the opposing pitchers there that goes on a regular basis, I guess. And, so, the fans in that part of the park are closer to the action. And, it looked different and it looked good. I've always liked the Blue Jays. I consider them to be like a second team. Again, I'm 2.5 hours from Toronto, so I go to games. I went to a game last year there. So, I like to see the Blue Jays do well. And again, they've been lifeless most of this year, and I've been down on them. But again, it's not a complete waste if you can make some noise at the end of the season. They're not going to make the playoffs, but maybe they can knock some teams out of the playoffs.
Kind of like they did last night when they beat Baltimore 5-1. But anyway, I'm going to move on, Joe,
Okay.
to the New York Yankees outfielder. We're going to talk about one of the Yankees' New York outfielders is feeling that wear and tear. And this is the real wear and tear, Joe, not the wear and tear that they just featured in College Football 25, even though I think that's artificially cool there. But anyway, Alex Verdugo is, in quote, a little beat up, according to manager Aaron Boone. As a result, the former Red Sox got a rest day last Sunday. Verdugo has had it rough on offense, as this season he's hitting a career worst 233 with 24 doubles, 10 home runs, 49 RBIs, 53 runs scored, and an 87 WRC league average is low. Nevertheless, Verdugo played in 34 consecutive games before Sunday. The last game where he wasn't in the lineup was June 21st against the Atlanta, home of the Braves. So, Joe, what do the Yankees need to do to keep Verdugo on the positive side of his morale? Because even though he's been on a downslide and he's hit a low 233, when he has been on a good streak, he's had his moments with the Yankees. So, what do you think they need to do? Because I think they can keep his morale high. It's just probably one of those things now where he's just one of the guys on the Yankees instead of being like the top dog on a Red Sox team that wasn't as good when he was there. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. I think they should handle it kind of the way you just said. Make sure to build the morale. You're going to give him a rest day or 2 or 3. You make sure that he knows it's not a punishment. It's not like he's not hustling. It's not like he's not trying. You just let him know that, hey, let's just, take a break here. You kind of watch and learn from the dugout. Sometimes when you're not in, you see things maybe that you wouldn't see if you're in the game. And so, again, if you just kind of let him know that and make sure, again, you keep boosting the morale and, showing faith in him that he's a good player and eventually he's going to get back to, the way he typically plays, I think that's the key. I'm not too concerned. It's a slump. Like you said, he's not the top dog here anymore. And, I think he knows that. Mm-hmm. But, I think that's the key right there.
He's not the top dog, but the team's better because when he was with the Red Sox, he was kind of the star, but the team was kind of underperforming when they sailed some guys. So,
right, exactly.
Mm-hmm. It is okay. Anyway, Joe, guess what? It is now that time in our show for our question of the week segment. So, Joe, would you like to give it a try?
I certainly would. I have a little more confidence these days, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay, Joe. So, can you guess this MLB team? They are tied for the third most World Series. Okay. However, they've had none since the 1980s. Is it the Cincinnati Reds, the Detroit Tigers, the Oakland, soon-to-be Sacramento Athletics, soon-to-be Las Vegas Athletics in 2028, and number 4, the St. Louis Cardinals?
All right. I think I know the answer to this. Now, I'm thinking, of course, we all know who has won the most World Series. I believe the Cardinals have won the second most. So and they've won a World Series recently, so it's not them. I kind of saw where this was going, and you mentioned the team I was thinking of. In fact, I just saw something recently. I don't know why or where it came from. 1984. It's the year I started. I graduated high school and started college. And while I was in college, some guy named Kirk Gibson and a bunch of guys that started the season 35-5 ended up winning the World Series. And that was the Detroit Tigers, and they haven't won one since. So that is going to be my guess. And the Reds, you were talking, the Reds won the World Series last in 1990. So that wasn't in the 80s. So I'm definitely going to go with the Detroit Tigers, and I have some confidence with this one.
I'm sorry, Joe. It was the Athletics.
It was the Athletics. Oh, my goodness.
Because remember, 1988, Kirk Gibson hit a walk-off home run in Game 1 against the A's because he had
That's
the
right.
2 bad knees for the Dodgers. And remember, the A's won in 1989, the year of the earthquake game against the Giants.
That's
the
when,
year
yeah,
after
the
that.
A's won that. I just didn't think, wow, it hurts getting knocked off my high horse here. I was totally confident in that one. Yeah, I
But
just
you were on
thought
the right track with Kirk Gibson, though.
Yeah, I thought the Tigers, I didn't think the A's had won that many. I mean, of course, I know they won 3 in a row in the 70s, and they won the one in 1989. But
After losing in 88 to Kirk Gibson's Dodgers.
right, they should have won all 3 of those World Series there because they were in 3 in a row, and they lost the one to the Dodgers. They won the one against the Giants, and then they were heavily favored against the Reds. And, the Reds were one of those teams that was good, but got hot at the right time. And all of a sudden, got, invincible in the playoffs and World Series there.
And it helps that they had a guy named Pete Rose on there, too.
Yep. I remember Chris Szabo is the guy that stands out on that team. He had these like Coke bottle glasses and was a great player on that team. They had a whole bunch of great players. I think Barry Larkin was on that team, if I'm not mistaken. But I just did not think that the A's had won more World Series than the Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's an excellent question. And again, I'll collect myself and not be so cocky next time.
And the good thing is, Joe, when you talked about the Mets playing the Athletics and all these teams and everything, at least at the end of the day, the Mets are still going to be in New York. And
yes,
we talked about that last night on what you got open mic where Dylan said, would you rather be a Chicago White Sox fan or an A's fan? Because you said you'd rather be a White Sox fan because at least you're not losing your team to another city.
That's the key there. The White Sox are staying in Chicago. They're not going to be this bad forever. And, just again, with the A's moving and history changing, and again, they have that history. Now, I don't know if you have this information. Do you know how many World Series they've won? I mean, I know at least 4 that I know of.
Are you talking about the A's?
Yeah. I don't know if you have that information there, but
the Yankees still have the most, obviously, with 27, but they also had the longest World Series drought of 15 years. So let's see.
Yeah, the Cardinals are second. And like I said, I know the A's have won at least 4 that I've been alive for.
Okay, let's see. They won 1910, 1911, 1913, 1929, 1930, 1972, 1973, 1974, and their last one, 1989.
89. Yeah, okay.
So that's 9 they've won.
Yeah, for some reason, I don't remember the ones from 1910 and 1911. I don't know why. But
and Joe, you also got to remember, my grandpa can tell you this too, is 1940 or 1950 when the Yankees won all those World Series. It used to be the top team from the AL and the top team from the NL with the best regular season record. You would go straight to the World Series. They didn't have playoffs then either.
Yeah, that's why another reason I hate this watered down playoff format now. I mean, I don't think we should have just two teams playing in the playoffs, but um, I think there's just too many teams in there.
Well, no, that's how the Yankees got robbed, though, in 1954. The Yankees had more wins than any other teams when they won the World Series, but they didn't
Uh,
get in because the Cleveland Indians at the time won 108. That's why.
Yeah, and that's why I think there should be some kind of wild card team because I remember right before the wild card. In fact, it might have been the year before
You
they
only had to
actually
win the division to get in.
you had to win the division. And I remember the San Francisco Giants won 100. I think they won 103 games, and they were the second best team in baseball. And it just so happened that the Braves won 104 and were the team ahead of them. And, the Giants didn't get in where there was some like 92 win teams that had got in. So that's when, I always thought, hey, we got to have some kind of wild card. And of course, the Mets, before they won the World Series in 86, they had a bunch of close calls. They had a close call in 84, close call in 85. And, I'm not looking at the standings right now, but I think they would have won the wild card in both of those, at least in 85, because again, they were one of the best teams in baseball. It just so happens the Cardinals were better and kept the Mets out of the playoffs. So I always say the Mets would have
the
made
Yankees
that.
won the first. 1995 was the first year they put the wild card in, and the Yankees won the first wild card. But guess what? Here's the funny thing too, Joe. In 1994, when the league went on strike, the Yankees actually had the best record in baseball. So a lot of people think they could have won the World Series that year too if they finished the year in 94. They had the best record in the league at the time in August.
Right. Although you know who would have beat them? The Montreal Expos. No, I'm just kidding.
In 94, you think?
Well, I'm not saying the Expos would have beat them, but I think the Expos had the best record in the National League at the time. It was the best team the Expos ever had. And they say a lot of the reason once they resumed playing in 1995, the Expos attendance never recovered. And I think the fans, that was their World Series opportunity. And they were so ticked off that they didn't get that opportunity because of the greed and all the whole reasons for that garbage. A lot of the fans never forgave, and they said the Expos never recovered because of that. So, interesting.
Yeah, and then now they're the Washington Nationals.
Right.
Which, if you think about it, that hasn't really worked out. I mean, that hasn't worked out too bad, though, if you think about it.
No, I'm glad. I mean, Washington deserved to have a team. They had Major League Baseball in the past. They certainly were talked about when baseball talked about expansion and stuff. So I'm a little disappointed Montreal doesn't have a team because that was always fun, and I like the whole Canadian experience and stuff. But, certainly there was no injustice in them going to Washington. And again, Washington's had some great teams. They've won a World Series. So it's worked out just fine for them. And again, if they weren't going to be in Montreal, I think Washington was the next best option.
And even though they're struggling right now, they got a good farm system with the Red Wings right now, which is good. That looks like that's working out well.
Yeah, that's just the ebb and flow of baseball. And, they weren't going to stay great forever. And now they're just, rebuilding and trying to get back to that.
Well, yeah, why do you think they had to trade Juan Soto for all those prospects? And one of those guys ended up being C.J. Abrams.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So there you go. And potentially, look at James Woods doing well right now in his rookie year ever since he got called up. And then potentially Dylan Cruz might get a shot to do well and get called up to the Nationals.
Yeah, because they still have some people on that hot prospects list from MLB. So, Woods is one of them. And he's, living up to it so far, and he's only going to get better. And then Cruz, and there might even be another one on there. So you're right. They got a big, a pipeline there, and the future is bright there. And they're
Yeah,
not
it
playing so
definitely
bad
is.
this year. I mean, I think they've played better than expected this year. They have a losing record, obviously, but they're competitive, and they're certainly
Mhm,
not an easy out.
mhm. And they've got some dogs on that team too that can play.
Mhm.
So anyway, now let's talk about Blake Snell's no hitter, Joe. How about this? Oh my OMG. No, Joe, not Jose Iglesias song. It's the third no hitter of the MLB season, and everyone can smell this one. Or can you smell what the Giants are cooking?
Yeah, I like it.
Rock reference. And anyway, last Friday night, Blake Snell threw his first career no hitter against the Cincinnati Reds. The reigning NL Cy Young Award winner fanned 11 Reds hitters on 114 pitches. Snell was only 2-4 with a 9.51 ERA and allowed 25 runs in only 23 and two-thirds innings pitched before heading onto the injured list in just 6 games. Additionally, he became one of only 7 pitchers in the MLB history to win the Cy Young Award in the AL and the NL, as he won the AL one in 2018 as a member of the Tampa Bay Rays.
Mhm.
The Giants are just 4.5 games shy of a wild card spot in the NL. Also, they boast one of the best 1A, 1B pitching tandems in their rotation in Snell, along with Logan Webb. So, Joe, what do you know? Another no hitter. And as we talked about it last night, we thought the no hitter was dead.
Right? How many times have we said that? And this is something I'm very happy to be wrong about. And we almost had our fourth one last night, right? Didn't Valdez come within an out of
Yeah,
getting a no hitter?
yeah, we watched it, and Texas hit a home run.
I thought we were going to have 2 in 1 week here. So crazy that, and I guess if you're going to pitch a no hitter, that's how you have to do it. Snell only pitched 114 pitches. We were on open mic last night, and I was tracking it, and I think I was seeing that Valdez only had about the same. He had like 107 pitches at the time, I think, and so you have to obviously be pitching efficiently in order to have a chance. And if I'm not mistaken, I thought I was watching an interview with Snell, and if I'm remembering right, they said he's never even pitched as good as he's been. Is it true he's never even pitched a complete game? I'm not
Yeah,
sure
that
if
is true. And this was his first career no hitter, too.
I knew it was his first no hitter, and I didn't know if it was his first complete game or complete game shutout. But if I heard right, I think he
And
had
he's
said
played
that
9 years, too, which is for somebody like him, that's a pretty good time. That's a pretty good chunk of time.
right, and winning Cy Youngs and pitching in World Series and stuff. So
He's not a
uh,
spring chicken anymore.
the fact that if that's true, which I think it is, the fact that he's never even pitched a complete game, which doesn't surprise me in modern Major League Baseball. Still, it's just great to know. The bottom line is it's great to know that maybe, you know what, the no hitter is not dead after all.
And guess what? I think it will make a comeback, Joe, with the pitch clock and everything. But you know how
Mhm.
I think it could come back? The
Now,
ABS system with the MLB trying the ABS system next year, because Manfred said they want to try to get it in next year.
yeah, I wouldn't mind that.
I saw it at the Red Wings game at the ABS, and it's a challenge system where you still have an umpire
Mhm.
behind the plate, but you challenge it to see, like in tennis, to see if it's a ball or strike. It's like tennis. It's fast and it's transparent.
That's excellent.
So I kind of want to see that in the MLB too. Even though
I've
I
been
like
saying,
I like when they miss it and then Aaron Boone goes out and gets ejected, but still,
yeah,
that's going to take that part out of the game. But still,
I've been saying that for years. I'm ready for the ball strike robots, and let's get it in there.
and obviously, like I said, we can agree to disagree with Chairman John on our open mic night, because obviously he doesn't agree with it, but that's fine. We can agree to disagree with him.
Exactly.
So because he likes human element and everything, but
Hmm. You know what I like? Getting it right.
same thing
So
with me. Especially when human element where they're just blatantly getting it wrong just to get it wrong, or they're calling it just to call it now, and it's not even true.
and it's just so inconsistent. I think that's what ticks the players off the most, is that it's so inconsistent. And it's always been that way. I mean, granted, even back in the 80s, and, again, Greg Maddux, one of the best pitchers in baseball history, I literally saw his eyes light up when he knew who the umpire was. And it's, Greg Maddux getting an umpire that called all those borderline on the corner pitches. You knew the game was going to be like 2 hours long, and he was going to throw like a 2-hit shutout. And he knew it. If he got a certain umpire behind the plate, the other team didn't even have a chance. But
And I mean, why
he gets somebody
go ahead.
else. I'm sorry, he gets somebody else in there that, the next time he pitches, the guy would have a totally different strike zone. So it's always been that way. And again, I think it's about time to not have it that way.
Right, when it's gotten to the point where it's human element doesn't really work. It's kind of like why roughing the passer and pass interference is reviewable now, and why those calls are going to eventually be reviewable in football, because it's so inconsistent with those calls.
Yep. Which they should be.
So anyway, why do you think the MLB also put the challenge system in when the umpire screwed up on the perfect game? That's why they got remember the Tigers pitcher?
Yep, I remember
They got robbed
that.
of a perfect game. That's actually why they put the challenge system in, was because of that.
I remember the St. Louis Cardinals should have won the World Series in 1985 because one of the worst calls ever at first base that the Royals got gifted and ended up winning. It cost the Cardinals that whole World Series.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff shouldn't happen. And luckily we got the replay system where, it prevents that.
Right. Anyway, Joe, guess what? It looks like we come to the end of our show, but before we go, we have a programming note to leave you with. Sadly, after this year, after our show on Wednesday, August 21st, we will be leaving our Subway Conversation chat and turning over to our attention to season 2. I'm happy to say this, our second annual Buffalo Sports Conversation Room, beginning Tuesday, August 27th. Hey,
Can't believe it's here.
Let's go Buffalo. Anyway, we hope that you all continue to join us on Tuesday evenings at 8:00 p.m., as well as join us next season for our second annual in season 2 of Subway Conversation Chat. Thank you. And next week, we'll be doing our Subway Conversation Chat on Thursday, August 15th, instead of Wednesday, August 14th. So we will see you all on Thursday at 8:00 p.m. So, Joe, where can we find you on social media on Wednesday, August 7th, 2024?
All right, my my Twitter X handle is Joe Dal Sports. So you can find me, follow me there. We post these and just other sports info that I think is significant. And so again, please follow me there.
Mm-hmm. And then you can find me, yours truly, at Bill's Chat 1, at Bill's Mafia Chat, and also at Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist, at DJ Dogtans on X and theforkball.com, where I write about all sports. Thank you guys so much for listening. And don't forget, please, to like, comment, hit that subscribe button, and ring the bell on our YouTube page, Driving to the Top Productions, to continue to listen to the Subway Conversation Chat. Tune in every Wednesday at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time, wherever you get your podcast, whether that be on our YouTube channel, our Facebook, or Twitch stream. And also, if you want to see a recap of our open mic night last night, go check that out on our YouTube page, Driving the Top Productions. It was wild. We had some hot takes from Dylan and everything, and we got 104 live listeners, so that was good. So tune into that on our YouTube page or wherever you get your podcast every night at 9 o'clock p.m. So thank you guys very much for listening. And get your New York sports here every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock p.m. on Driving the Top Productions. See you next week, folks.
Have a good week, everybody.